Salutations to all our future judges. In this video, we are going to see the Code of Civil Procedure 1908, Part 14, Section 60. If you have not seen the earlier part, that is Part 13, I am providing the link in the iCard. You can click that and watch the earlier part. And if you want to watch the entire playlist, I am providing the link of the playlist in the description. You can watch the entire playlist by clicking on that link. Let us move to section 60. Attachment. Property liable to attachment and sale in execution of decree. There are certain things which you need to know when you file a petition for execution of a decree. There are certain things which can be attached. There are certain things which cannot be attached. So all these aspects are completely discussed in this particular section. This particular section is very important for preliminary exam as well as main exam, and even in interview they can ask questions from this particular section. So this section is absolutely important. You need to understand each and every part of this particular section. There are so many subsections in this and subclauses in this which you need to understand. Let us move the first subsection under section 60. The first aspect is what can be attached. Lands, houses, buildings, goods, money, banknotes, checks, bills of exchange, hundis, promissory notes, government securities, bonds, or other securities for monies, debts, share in a corporation. These things can be attached. They can ask question from this particular part also. They can ask like, what are the things which can be attached? And they might give some items which cannot be attached. And there might be one option which can be attached. You need to pick up the correct option or choice. Let us move to the things which you need to know in this particular section. If there is anything which is not covered under that particular aspect what we saw now, but if it is a saleable property, immaterial, whether it is movable or immovable, the property can be movable or immovable, that is immaterial, and it should belong to the judgment debtor. First point. Second aspect is the judgment debtor in an intelligent way. What he may do is he may not have this property in his hand. What he may do is he may buy the property or have the property in name of some other friend and have an indirect control over that particular property, and he can derive profits from that particular property. In that case also, that property can also be attached, provided he has a disposing power which he can use for his own benefit. And the important point is it can be in the name of judgment debtor or any other person. For example, it can be the wife of judgment debtor, it can be the father of judgment debtor, it can be the mother of judgment debtor. So in all these cases the property can be attached, and there are certain properties which cannot be attached, and they can ask questions from this particular section. There are some provisos which you need to understand. Let us move to the proviso and understand these one by one. The first, that is A point, is wearing apparel. So if there is anything which the wife or children of the judgment debtor is wearing, that cannot be attached. The vessels which they use for cooking in their house, that cannot be attached. And their bedding or beds, that cannot be attached. And particularly personal ornaments as in accordance with religious usage. For example, in Hinduism, wearing a thali, this cannot be attached because it has a religious value and usage, and this cannot be parted by any women. So that is the first point, which is point A. Let us move to the next point, which is point B, tool of artisans. Because the person is dependent on that particular business as an artisan, he needs the tools. Without tools, he cannot do anything, he cannot make an earning out of it. So if the judgment debtor is artisan, his tools cannot be attached. Now let us move to the next point. If he is an agriculturalist, imagine he is a farmer, then his implements of husbandry cannot be attached, and his cattle cannot be attached, and there may be seed grain using which he is producing the grains, that cannot be attached. So the simple aspect is a thing which is necessary for a person for his livelihood cannot be attached in a simple manner. We can understand this way. And in addition to this, if there is an agricultural produce, or if there is any class of agricultural produce which may be declared to be free from liability, for example, government may say If a person is producing, say, 10 tons of rice, government will say 2 tons cannot be attached. This is only for an example or for understanding purpose. So in that case, the 2 tons cannot be attached. Balance 8 tons of rice can be attached. Let us move to the next point. C. Houses and other buildings. The general aspect is that houses and buildings can be attached, but there is a catch. In case if this particular house or building belongs to an agriculturalist or a laborer of a domestic servant, and the very important point is it should be occupied by him. Imagine I am an agriculturalist, I hold a house or building, so I'm letting it out to some other person. In that case, this provision will not apply, this exemption will not apply. So houses and other buildings belonging to an agriculturalist or a laborer of a domestic servant cannot be attached. Let us move to the next point, which is point D. Books of account. Generally, account books cannot be attached. And E. A mere right to sue for damages. If I am having a right to sue a person for any damage which is caused, that right I cannot attach. Next point is F. Any right to personal service. If there is a right of personal service, that right cannot be separately attached. Next is G. Stipends and gratuities allowed to pensioners of the government. In one state, if I recollect, a question was asked from this particular section. They asked whether political pensions, that is the gratuity and stipends given under political pension, can be attached. The answer is no. So, a pension which is recognized by the central government or state government, or stipends and gratuities allowed to pensioners of the government, local authority, or any other employer. So, if someone is getting a stipend and gratuity which is allowed to a pensioner, that cannot be attached. And particularly in political pensions also, stipends and gratuities cannot be attached. Let us move to the next point, which is point H. The wages of laborers and domestic servants, whether payable in money or in kind. So if there is a laborer or a domestic servant, if I'm saying to the domestic servant or a laborer, for example, imagine I'm an agriculturalist and he is helping me to do the harvesting. So I say to him, see, you've done this work. What I'll do is I'll give you 10 kgs of rice. So the question is whether this 10 kg of rice can be attached. The answer is no. So I'm telling to the same person, no, I'm not giving you in rice. I'll give you, say, some 1000 rupees. Whether the 1000 rupees can be attached, that can also be not attached. Let us move to the next point, which is point I. If a person is getting, say, salary of 10,000 rupees, his first 1000 rupees cannot be attached. So that 1000 rupees will be for his purpose. And the balance 9000 rupees, out of which 2/3 cannot be attached, that is 6000 cannot be attached. So the balance 3000 can only be attached. And there is an exception to this. If that execution is for decree for maintenance, in that case, this restriction will not apply. Let us move to the proviso part in this particular section. Let us take the same example again for understanding this particular provision. A person is earning 10,000 rupees and 3,000 can be attached. This 3,000 is under attachment for 24 months. It can be continuous or it can be intermittent. For 24 months, it was under attachment. So in that case, that particular 3,000 portion will be exempted for a period of 12 months after that 24 months. So that is the most important point. Question can be asked from this particular proviso in preliminary exam. And if there is an attachment made in execution of the same decree, in that case, after a period of 24 months, total period of 24 months, he will be finally exempt from further attachment with respect to that particular decree. Let us move to the next point in this. Now the question arises, if this particular I point is not available in case of decree for maintenance, what shall apply? So the answer is IA. In this, 1/3 of the salary in execution of any decree for maintenance. So if there is a maintenance decree, in that case, 1/3 of the salary cannot be attached. That is the very important point, and this can be asked in the preliminary exam. Let us move to the next point, which is J. Imagine a person is in military force. In that case, he can be in Air Force, he can be in Army, he can be in Navy. So in that case, pays and allowances cannot be attached. Let us move to the next point, which is point K. All compulsory deposits and other sums in or derived from any fund to which Provident Funds Act. To put it in a simple manner, if a person is putting some money in Provident Fund, which is a compulsory deposit, and other sums derived from such fund. For example, in Provident Fund, they are giving, say, interest of 7.75%. And that interest is coming to this person. Whether that interest can be attached, the answer is no, because that is a sum which is derived from the Provident Fund. And if there is a compulsory deposit, for example, if there is a compulsory requirement that a person should pay from his salary, say 10%, that 10% cannot be attached because he needs to pay that amount to the Provident Fund. Let us move to the next point, which is KA. There are two crucial points in this KA. One is, here they say all deposits. They simply say all deposits. It's not a compulsory deposit. It simply says all deposits. And the next important point is, it should be a public provident fund. That is the point here. Previously, it was only Provident Funds Act. Now it is Public Provident Fund Act. This is the difference between K and KA. Let us move to the next point, which is KB. If a person is to be paid under the policy of insurance on the life, for example, there is a judgment debtor who has taken some policy in life insurance corporation, and in case if he is getting some money on his life, maybe due to some untoward incident he died, is getting some money based on that, in that case that money cannot be attached. Let us move to the next point, which is KC. If there is a residential building, imagine there is a residential building and there is a lessee who has some interest in that residential building. This is one part of that particular point. The second aspect is that if that particular residential building is covered by the provisions of law for control of rents and accommodation, when this is happening, then the interest of that lessee in the residential building cannot be attached. If government is saying that a particular allowance cannot be attached, that cannot be attached. And in addition to this, any subsistence grant or allowance made to any such servant while under suspension. So a question can be asked here. If a government servant is under suspension, can his grant or allowance be attached? The answer is no. Let us move to the next point, which is point M. If a person is expecting a succession by survivorship, if imagine I may get the property by succession from my parents or from anyone else for that reason. So in that case, can anyone attach that particular right or the expectancy of succession? The answer is no, because it is a possible right or interest. I have not got that right yet. Next, let us move to the other point, which is point N. So if someone is having a right to future maintenance, that cannot be attached. The next point is point O. If there is an Indian law which actually exempts an allowance from liability to attachment, in that case that allowance cannot be attached. Let us move to the other point, which is point P. If a person is a judgment debtor and is liable to pay for the land revenue, the payment is due. In such case, any movable property is exempt from the sale of recovery of an arrear of such revenue. Imagine there is a person A. He has to pay the land revenue. He has not paid it. So in that case, if someone is coming to attach any property, then they cannot attach any property as they wish. If there is an exemption provided for that particular mobile property, that cannot be attached. For example, as already we have seen, if he is an artisan, his tools cannot be attached. So that is an important point. So that is a mobile property which cannot be attached. They are given some explanations. Let us try to understand these explanations one by one. Now, let us move to explanation 1. There are two aspects which we need to understand in this particular explanation. We very well know that clauses G, H, I, A, J, L and O are exempt from attachment or sale. These are practically connected to the salary, wages and other aspects. That cannot be attached. We know this. The question is whether this particular aspect, that is attachment aspect, comes before the due or the salary or wage or whatever it may be is actually payable, or whether it is after it is payable. The answer is you need not consider about it. It can be before or after. It is immaterial. So the simple aspect is if it is a salary or a wage or any other similar kind of thing, it cannot be attached. It is exempted as provided earlier in those clauses. However, there is one more aspect which you need to understand in this explanation. If it is salary, the attachable portion can be attached even before it is payable. So, for example, this is the month of December. So, I'll be getting my salary on say 5th of next month. So, the salary is payable not now. It will be paid only after the completion of 1 month. So, after completion of 1 month, I'll be getting the salary in a future date. So, it is actually payable only after 1 month. So, this can be attached even before that period. In December itself, this can be attached, though the money is payable only after. So, in certain cases, if it is payable before also, it can be attached. Let us move to explanation 2. What the salary includes. This can be asked in preliminary exam. Salary means the total monthly emoluments. So, what is exempted from salary is the allowance, which is actually already we have seen all those aspects. The allowances which are exempted from the salary are excluded. So, that is the first point we need to understand. Now, the next aspect is that if a person is on duty or on leave, in both these cases, he can get salary. So, imagine a person is taking 15 days paid leave. So you'll be getting salary for that 15 days paid leave. So in that case, whether that can be attached, the answer is simply yes. Let us move to the next aspect. Explanation 3. So which government is called the appropriate government? This can also be asked as a question in the preliminary exam. The first point is as respects any person in the service of central government. So if a person is in the service of the central government, that is the first point. The second aspect is if a person is servant under a railway administration. The other aspect is if that person is a servant in a cantonment authority or port authority. In all these cases, it will be the central government which will be the appropriate government. To understand this in a very simple manner, if a particular aspect or particular sector is being governed by the central government directly, in that case, the central government will be called as the appropriate government. This government will only pass necessary rules. The next point here is, if it is with respect to any other servant of the government, then the local authority or the state government. Let us move to explanation 4. What is covered under the term wages? Wages will include bonus also. This was asked once in a preliminary exam. Whether wages include bonus? The answer is yes. And whether a laborer includes a skilled laborer or unskilled laborer or semi-skilled laborer. The answer is yes. The word laborer includes skilled person, unskilled person, semi-skilled person. Next, let us move to explanation number 5. Who is an agriculturalist? The simple aspect is a person who is cultivating the land, and he can do it personally. And the next important point is this should also be there. He should be depending on that cultivation for his livelihood from the income from an agricultural land. He can be a owner, he can be a tenant, he can be a partner, he can also be a laborer, mere laborer. Whatever it may be, he should be dependent on the money he gets from that agricultural land by way of cultivation. That should be the only source of his livelihood. In that case, the person is called as an agriculturalist. Let us move to explanation 6. When a person is considered to be cultivating for his personal aspect. Imagine I am calling myself to be an agriculturalist. When it is considered that I am cultivating land, that is my land or someone else's land personally. First thing, I am going to the field and I am cultivating personally. In that case, it is considered that I am cultivating the land personally. Second aspect, I am asking my parents, I am asking my brothers, sisters to go and cultivate. In that case also, it means that I am cultivating it personally. The third point, what I am doing is I am engaging my servant to do some cultivation in that particular field, or I am engaging some laborer and I am paying him wages. I can pay him in cash or kind. But very important thing is I should not share the produce. For example, I am cultivating paddy, rice. I am saying that you cultivate this entire land. I'll give you 2 bags of rice which I am cultivating in this particular field. That will not be accepted. That cannot be considered as personal cultivation. Let us move to the next point, which is 1A. If there is any agreement which is entered into between parties making this particular section invalid, or saying that I don't want this benefit, I am waiving off this benefit, that kind of agreement is void. Now let us move to subsection 2. If I am filing a case against a person who is sitting in my house for rent or who is occupying my house for rent, in that case, what will happen is I'll file a case against him if he's not paying me the rent. So the court will ask me to attach the house and other buildings appurtenant thereto. In that case, this particular section will not apply. To put it in a very simple manner, I am letting out a house to one Mr. A. He is not paying the rent. I am going to the court and I am getting an order against him saying that the rent should be paid and he is not paying the rent. So I am asking the court that this property needs to be attached and it should be given to me. In that case, this section will not apply. This particular section will not apply for execution of decrees for rent of house, building, site or land.
If you like the video, please do press the thumbs up button and leave your comments in the comment section. And do subscribe the channel and also share the channel with your friends. Let us join hands together and contribute for a learned society. Thank you.